Today I want us to go through the proposal section. I want to point out some of the things that you should bear in mind when you are writing your proposal. And I'm going to move section by section, and in each section I'm going to discuss how that section should be approached, what should be included in that particular section, and also the extent to which you need to go if you have to write that section clearly. Before you write your proposal, you need to have your research topic. Your research topic should be a topic that is basically researchable. Researchable in the sense that you have your two variables, that is the independent variable and also the dependent variable. As we have discussed, is that independent variable is that which remains unchanged. It doesn't change. It's not influenced by any other variable. The dependent variable is the one that is affected depending with the effects of the independent variable, which means that the independent variable has a chance of changing the dependent variable, while the dependent variable cannot change or influence the independent variable in any way. So in the cover page, you need to have your research topic up there in capital letters. You need to capture it properly and you need to center it, and then you should leave some space, and then you should have your name, official name there, and then beneath your name you need also to have your registration number. And then that section again, you skip some space, you just click enter until you see that the space is well vacated, and then the words that follow is that the research project submitted to the School of Development and Strategic Studies in partial fulfillment for the award of the degree of Bachelor of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy of the Pioneer International University. And then under that again, you just press enter until you are nearing the end of that page, and then you write the month in which you have submitted that work. If you are submitting that work, let's say September, then you just write September 2025. In the cover page, everything should be capitalized. And the reason of we do that is to allow proper visibility, and also because it is a more of presentation. We want the layout to be nicely looking, so that in that page I would allow students, for instance, to use font 12 and if you can go to 14, if it is, as long as it is not affecting the display. So in the cover page, that is how you need to space it. It needs to capture your research topic up there as the first thing. Then you space, you put your names and the registration number, and then the statements that this is a research project that you are submitting for the partial fulfillment. That narrative needs to be captured there, and then you need to place the month in which this work is being submitted. Then that is now your cover page. Cover page does not have any page number. So you go down there and check that there is no page number in the cover page. So the next page that follows is declaration. This declaration page is normally a practice that is trying to affirm that the work that you are submitting is your own work, and the declaration is both by the candidate and also by the supervisor. And there are three sections there. So you have a declaration by the candidate, and then you have a declaration by the supervisor, and then you have the head of department declaration. There is a template that I shared on how that page should be done. Please check in the group and get that page. It is there. The layout is very clear. You just need to copy it and paste it there. Make sure you capture those three sections: declaration by the candidate, declaration by the supervisor, and lastly, the head of department declaration. You put the names of the HOD and the names of the supervisor as captured in that template, and then for the declaration of the candidate, you just put your name, you underline, and then you leave a space so that you fill those details manually. That is normally how I want my declaration to be done. So the declaration page, because we have not numbered the cover page, the declaration page automatically becomes Roman 2, because we assume that our Roman 1 is the cover page, but we don't put Roman 1 there because the cover page does not have a page number. So our numbering starts from the declaration. After the declaration page, you move to the dedication. The dedication page is where you want to dedicate that project. It can be a person, it can be your relative, it can be anybody, your child or any other person whom you feel you want to inspire through that kind of a work. So you write a dedication. I have seen a dedication which is almost similar to an acknowledgement. A dedication normally is a very short statement, very reflective in tone, at times quite emotional, which you put there as a memory or a dedication to someone about a given topic. And then once you have done your dedication, which is Roman 3, now you need to do your acknowledgement. Now, acknowledgement, in this one, you are trying to appreciate the people that have been there for you in as far as your studies are concerned, the people that have spent their resources, their time, they have given you the moral support. So you appreciate all these people that have contributed to your journey up to this far. And I normally suggest that in paragraph 1, you can acknowledge God or Allah if you are Muslim, so that because we humanly, we all draw our strength from God. So that should be your paragraph 1. Then the second paragraph, now you need to talk about the institution. Now within the Pioneer International University, you have the department, you have the HOD there, and you also have the supervisor. So you talk about these people, and normally best practice in writing the acknowledgement is you need to mention names of these individuals that you are acknowledging. You cannot just appreciate people amorphously when you are not mentioning their names. You need to mention their names. So that should be your second paragraph, and then you can spread it department within the university. There are sections, there's many areas that have facilitated your life in school. It can be library department, specific individuals, it can be the department, certain lecturers. That is where you dedicate. And then once you have finished from the university, the department and then the supervisor. Then now you need to move to family. Now within the family, you can acknowledge the parental support that you have received from your siblings, from your relatives. They could be cousins, and so many others. So that is another paragraph. Then you now narrow it down to another paragraph where you are trying to acknowledge your friends, the ones that you have been with in school since first year. You have been assisting one another in so many ways. You have become friends, you have shared experiences, and you have been in various discussion groups now and then. And in one way or the other, they have enriched you. You don't have to thank everyone. You need to just pick out a sample and then express your acknowledgement in the same. And then lastly, because you cannot reach out to everyone, then you need to also, in absentia, maybe throw a blanket statement to all those who have contributed to your success in one way or the other. You are recognizing their contribution. Then after that, you have your table of contents. In the table of contents, now what I have captured, the declaration page, the dedication page, acknowledgement page, all those pages are called the front matter. They may include list of abbreviations. Actually, by now you need to come up with a list of abbreviations, and the abstract. So all those sections, they are called the front matter. Those ones, you number them in Roman numbers. So you put your table of contents, which captures chapter 1, what is included, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. This table of contents, you have to do it automatically using Word. There is a way it is done. Don't do it manually. If you do it manually, it will not make sense. So you have your table of contents there. And then immediately after the table of content, then you have your list of abbreviations. List of abbreviations. Abbreviations, you organize them in alphabetical order. Organize them in alphabetical order. And then after the list of abbreviations, you have your abstract. An abstract is a brief summary of an entire project in less than 300 words. It is a brief summary of the entire project, which means you summarize only the key sections of the project. And normally, proposals do not have abstract. Normally, an abstract is written in the full project. It is a one paragraph. It captures all the key sections of the project, starting from some few mentions from the background of the study, statement of the problem, research objectives, theoretical underpinnings, research methodology, the findings of the study, and then the conclusion and the recommendations. All those things need to be captured in an abstract, and it must be one paragraph, no two paragraphs. One paragraph. Best practice is that this paragraph is single spaced, and it must capture all those sections of the project in less than 300 words. So you need to exercise word economy there if you have to write a good abstract. Now, once you have finished all that, that is what I call the front matter. Now you move to chapter 1. Now in chapter 1, the title of chapter 1 is introduction. So you put chapter 1 there in capital letters. Under it, you write the introduction, and then the chapter and the introduction, those two, you center them. And then now you move to your left. You do your 1.0, which is an introduction. Every chapter must have an introduction from chapter 1 to chapter 5. All those chapters must start with an introduction. An introduction is a brief overview of what the chapter is all about. It must cover the subtitles within the chapter. There is no citation there. You are using your own words. You are just trying to alert your reader what follows in the chapter. What is the chapter all about? So it should be a brief introduction. It should be less than 8 sentences. At most, you need to have 8 sentences. Then your 1.1 is the background of the study. Now, in the background of the study, this is where you are making some introductory remarks as far as your topic is concerned. You are looking at how this topic has been covered at a global level. So if you are writing about Kenya's effects of foreign policy on state consolidation, you need to figure out within the global context, is there a place where this kind of narrative has been written about? So that becomes your global perspective. So you write from the global perspective and then you transition to the regional perspective. Now, in the regional perspective, you are moving closer home. It could be a case in Africa. Maybe if you are doing your topic in West Africa, there your regional perspective could be East Africa. You pick a state that has the same trend that you are discussing in the topic and you discuss that case there. And then your local perspective is your research topic. Your local perspective is your research topic. So you need now to write your background as far as the research topic is concerned. What is it that we need to know? How is that topic unfolding? This should be the background of the study should be at the minimum 4 pages. At the minimum of 4 pages. This background of the study must be well cited. The best practice is at least in 1 paragraph. You need to have a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 4 citations. And don't make these citations to be so predominant in your work to an extent that they are muzzling down your voice, because as I read the background, I need to hear the voice of the researcher. The voice of the researcher must be captured in the background. So in as much as you will be citing, make sure that you have interludes where you are injecting your own voice as a researcher. So this this section, the background of the study, must be well cited. I have noted that some of you are using AI to write your background. As a result of that, you don't have your own personal voice in that, and there is no single citation. And it becomes very frustrating when you go that direction, because it means you are actually forfeited your responsibility as a student and you are looking on how to finish that thing without doing due diligence. So that section needs to be captured like that. The next section is your statement of the problem. Now, the statement of the problem is your research problem. Your research problem. And this one, we get it straight from the topic. If you are doing foreign policy and state consolidation, then your research problem is that foreign policy is affecting state consolidation, or state consolidation in Africa has proven to be a very difficult encounter because of external interferences, that which is foreign policy in nature, because we know any external interference is an action of the state which is trying to enhance its own interests. So the statement of the problem, at the minimum, it must be a page and a half. At the minimum, needs to be a page and a half. It can go beyond there, but let it not be less than a page and a half and more than a page and 3/4. So capture that. And the statement of the problem also needs to be cited, especially if you are raising concerns that are not your own views. You need to cite it. And then after that, your 1.3 is the objectives of the study. Now, the objectives of the study, you'll have your 1.31, which is a general objective, which you actually lift it from the research topic that you have there. And then your 1.32 should be specific research objectives. Now, these specific research objectives, how do you get them? You look at your independent variable. You need to break it down. The independent variable, you need to break it down to several, at least 3 entities that are factored in within your independent variable, and see how that particular factor is affecting the dependent variable. From there, derive your 3 research objectives, which are specific. Now, after that, you move to 1.4 is research questions. Now here, your general research objective should be similar to your general research question. The only difference is that the research objective is a statement, the research question is a question. The wording must be the same. When you move to specific research questions, the same needs to apply. You need to have research objective 1 should be similar to research question 1. If, for example, you are doing your research objective 1 is to analyze the role of religious identity in shaping Libya, Saudi Arabia relations, the first research question again should be, how has religious identity influenced Libya, Saudi Arabia relations? That telling must be there. Specific research objective 1 must be similar to research question 1, and the same applies to 2 and 2. 3 and 3. Those things must tally like that. Then once you have done that, you move to the justification of the study. The justification of the study, we are looking at why is it important for this research to be undertaken? Why is it important for this research to be undertaken? There are 2 standpoints that we adopt in trying to write the justification of the study. The first one, we need to justify the study from a policy perspective, which means what is the contribution that this study is bringing as far as the existing policy is concerned. What is the existing, and for you to understand the contribution in as far as the policy justification is concerned, you need to look at the existing policy. What are the weaknesses that are being demonstrated in the existing policy? First, you need to understand what is the policy that is existing, what is the nature of the policy that is existing, and then you need to delve into the weaknesses of those policy measures that are existing, and then go ahead to demonstrate how your study is strengthening the existing shortcomings as far as that policy is concerned. And that must be cited properly, because we need to understand the existing policy. The existing policy must be cited, and then the scholars that have contributed need also to be cited, and then show us how your study is strengthening the existing policy. And then the other part is the academic perspective. What are the existing academic gaps that your study is covering, because every study leads to the new information. The discovery of new information is not just for the sake of it. It is there to bridge an existing academic gap. Which gap is that? So you need to look at how to bring that out. And normally, the way I advise students is that look at the various studies that have been done within your topic. See what each study covered, and see if there is a study that, if a study covered a given element and left out something, that is your gap. And then another study also covered something and left a gap. Another one covered and left a gap. All those must be cited. And then now you need to bring in that in spite of the existing literature, this gap, the gap now that you want to cover, remains underexplored. And therefore, this research is tailored to fit into that study and cover that academic gap. Don't tell us that there is no research that has been done in that area. That is very wrong. Just say this area remains largely underexplored, so that now you can justify your incoming to bridge that particular gap. Then your 1.6 need to be the scope of the study. Now, in the scope of the study, we are looking at the leaps and the bounds that we will go as far as the study is concerned. We are looking at the limitations of the years, the scope in terms of the years. Which periods are we dealing with? Somebody could be dealing with something from 2010 to 2024. That is already your scope. So our scope will be 2010 to 2024. We'll not do anything 2025. We are not bothered by anything 2009 and below. That becomes our scope. And then another scope would be in terms of geography. If your study is limited in Kenya, then Kenya becomes your geographical scope. We'll not talk about Uganda, we'll not talk about Tanzania, we'll not talk about anything outside our geographical area. The other scope would be the themes that we are dealing with. If we are dealing with foreign policy and state consolidation, then that is the scope. We will not go ahead again to discuss diplomacy or go ahead to discuss state fragmentation. We will not do that because we are already bound by the scope. So this area needs to be written critically. I have seen people throwing statements here and there carelessly because they think that this area is an area that is not that important. The scope of the study will inform your chapter 5, especially when you are talking about areas for further research. Whatever you left out in your scope becomes your recommendation for areas under which further research can be undertaken. So get it right. In the scope, we are dealing with the leaps and the bounds. How far are we moving as far as this project is concerned? What areas are we including? What areas are we leaving out? And whatever we capture inside our mandate, that becomes our scope in terms of time, in terms of geography, and in terms of the themes. That is your 1.6. Now 1.7 is limitations of the study. Limitations of the study means that these are potential challenges that we see that are likely to affect the outcome of our research. They could be one limitation. For example, if I'm doing a qualitative research design, could be that I will be relying on secondary data that is already collected. So which means the problems and the shortcomings of the secondary data that were committed by the person who collected it originally, you are likely to inherit that. If I'm dealing with a mixed research design, and I'm saying I'll do interviews, and the topic is very sensitive, the limitation is that the participants may not fully open up in as far as the collection of data is concerned. So you look at the limitations as potential problems that are likely to derail your research, especially if the research has to be generalized or if the research has to be uh, uh, to bring new insights. So you need to look at that. Then don't stop there. The last paragraph, once you have listed the limitations, each limitation must be covered in a paragraph. Once you have done that, then for every limitation, as you near the end of that paragraph, tell us how you are going to overcome that particular limitation. If you don't say how you are overcoming those limitations, you are as well accepting that your research will not be able to rise above these limitations, and therefore we as the readers should give it the minimum attention it deserves, so that we are not bothered with whatever you are writing, because if it is not rising above limitations, then it is not contributing to anything new, and that it is not does not require our attention. So that is how you do limitations. I have seen elsewhere people are writing limitations of the study, limitations and delimitations. Don't do that. Your 1.7 should read limitations of the study and point out in each paragraph have a limitation, and as you near the end of that paragraph, explain how that limitation will be overcome so that the research maintains its objectivity. Then once you have done that, you move to 1.8, which is definition of terms. In the definition of terms, all those terms that are important to the understanding of the research must be defined. When you look at your research topic, you realize if I'm doing foreign policy and state consolidation, then it means I must do foreign policy. I must explain what foreign policy is. I must explain what state is. I must explain what consolidation is, and then I must also explain what state consolidation is. In this section, this is how you approach it. If you have a term like bilateral relations within your research topic, then you define it. You say according to Ogoti into bracket 2010 defines bilateral relations as this and this and this, which means capture a scholarly definition. And once you have captured a scholarly definition, now you need to operationalize that. Now, how do you do that? You say, in this study, now using your own words, the way you have understood, according to Ogot, what is said in bilateral, to you in this study, what do you want the readers to use as their definition, their guiding torch, as far as the understanding of that term is concerned? So you say, in this study, bilateral relations will entail this and this and this. In other words, in this section, you define a term according to the scholarly definition, and then beneath, in your own words, you say, in this study, the bilateral relations will mean this and this and this, which means you do that for every term. Or another way of doing it is you can just say that this study, you say definition of terms, then the first term is bilateral relations. So you say this study adopts the definition of bilateral relations as defined by Ogoti in 1980, who defined bilateral relations as this and this and this, so that we know that you have adopted, you have embraced that definition of Okoti. And that must be done in all the terms that you are using in your study. And take care that you don't define everything. As I have seen students defining even those terms that are not important. It's not a must. You are not in a competition to fill this section and inflate the pages there. You are just defining keywords that you think are very important if this study has to be understood by the reader. So define the term according to a scholar, and you can use two scholars. One scholar defines it like this, on the other hand another scholar defines like this, but within this study this term will mean this and this. For every term, you must do that. I have seen students who are just writing. They are just giving me the scholarly definition. They are not going ahead to tell me within this study how that term will be used. And that is not that they don't know. Most of them are actually ignoring that, which is not good. So that is chapter 1. Let's look at chapter 2. Your chapter 2 is the literature review. Literature review again starts with the introduction, which is your 2.0. 2.0 is your introduction. Like I said, all chapters must start with the introduction, and the introduction gives a brief overview on what is included in the chapter that you are dealing with. So your 2.1, so chapter 2 literature review, that is the title. Center, chapter 2, center, capital letters. Literature review, center, capital letters. And then on the left margin, put your 2.0, write introduction. Then give the introduction of the chapter. What are we covering in this chapter? What are the sections in this chapter? Give us that narrative in less than 8 sentences. Less than 8 sentences. Don't let it to be so wordy, and don't cite. The introduction is your own words. Never cite an introduction. And then your 2.1 is theoretical framework. Theoretical framework. You are capturing, this is the section where you are saying which theory you are using. I have taught this section severally. I have told you in class that you only need to use one theory. I have seen projects, research proposals where people are using 4 theories. I don't know whether they are not understanding or they are ignoring the earlier teachings. You are just complicating your work. This theoretical framework 2.1, theoretical framework, have one theory, and this is the order. The first paragraph is you state the theory. You say that this study adopts a neoclassical realism theory as its guiding framework of explaining the influence of foreign policy on state consolidation. Then go ahead and tell us why you think that theory is important to anchor this study. What makes this theory unique, and what are the key attributes of this theory that make it suitable to anchor your study. And then state the theory as it is. State the theory as it is. That is within paragraph 1. Now within the next paragraph, I should now see the proponents of the theory. Each theory has people who have written about it, people who have contributed to that theory, and through their writings now capture how each, if you are looking at classical realism, for example, I expect you to talk about people like Thucydides as a proponent of that theory. I expect to see Machiavelli there as a proponent of that theory. I expect to see Thomas Hobbes as a proponent of that theory. I expect to see Hans Morgenthau there as a proponent of that theory, as all those scholars. And for each proponent, tell us what their contribution is. Did they expand the theory? And if they expanded, what are the new areas that they included in that particular theory? Fuse that narrative in paragraph 2, 3, and even 4. And then now tell us now using now in paragraph 6 maybe tell us key assumptions. Start outlining. So say in anchoring this study, the key assumptions of classical realism informed the study. First, classical realism assumes that human nature is inherently selfish, egoistic, and self-seeking. So put a full stop there. Explain what that assumption means, and you must cite. And then within your study, how is that assumption linking to your study? How is that assumption linking to your study? And you must cite. This area must be cited, and it must be given the justice it needs to get. This should be at the minimum. A good written theoretical framework should be 2 pages at the minimum. Should be 2 pages. It should not go beyond 2.25 pages. It should be 2 pages to 2 pages and a quarter. Anything less than that does not take into consideration the layout that I have given is a disservice to this section. So all those who have done your proposals, you have seen in the section I'm commenting, rewrite this section. It is because I feel you didn't capture the nitty-gritty details of that particular section. So theoretical framework, have one theory. In that theory, the first paragraph justify why that theory is suitable. State the opening sentence is that this study adopts the neoclassical realism theory, and say why is that suitable, and then state what that theory says, and then explore proponents, people who have written about that theory from their writings. What are their major inputs as far as that theory is concerned? You need to hear that narrative, and then you look at key assumptions. At least get 5 key assumptions that you will use in that theory to anchor your study. If you cannot find 5 key assumptions of that theory, then it means you have not read enough of that theory, because every proponent of the theory brings on board new insights to the theory. Then once you have done your theoretical framework, your 2.2 is empirical literature review. Empirical literature review. Your 2.21 should be your research objective 1. The one that we talked in chapter 1, specific research objectives. Now, in reviewing literature empirically, your 2.21 should be your specific research objective 1. And you need to write what has been written as far as that research objective is concerned. You must cite clearly. You must tackle various studies that have been done in line with your research objective, and you must write with a view of exposing the academic gap that is yet to be covered by this study. So your 2.22 is your specific research objective 2, and your 2.23 is your specific research 3, objective 3. So those ones, each research objective need to be done in 2 pages and a half at the minimum. 2 pages and a half. Well cited, well narrated, well expressed. The researcher's voice must be heard in that. You are writing as a critic to what is already existing, so that you can demonstrate the gaps that are there These gaps are the gaps that we were emphasizing in the justification of the study. So you write a 2.5 page. Every objective should be covered like that, properly cited. Best standard, a paragraph needs to have at least 3 citations, APA citations. And if you are studying, you are doing a study 2010 to 2024, somebody is citing something in 1920, that which means your research is deeply affected because you are quoting data and writings that have been time bound. So you need to look at that. I'm not ruling out if you want to use certain writings, because there is what we call classical writings. For example, if you are writing on classical realism, you cannot avoid mentioning Thucydides in the BC. In the BC, Thucydides is still relevant even today because that is a classical literature, the one that can live the test of time. Machiavelli's writings are classical. If you are doing realism, Machiavelli is classical. So if you quote Machiavelli, I won't be hard on you. But when you are trying to review literature, try to make sure that your sources are up to date. Most likely 2010 onwards. Then 2.3, your 2.3 is critique of the literature. Now, in the critique of the literature, you are trying to look at what other people have written and the shortcomings that exist as far as that literature is concerned, with a view again of emphasizing the research academic gap that the study is going to cover. And then your 2.4 should be research gap. So you state the research gaps that you are going to cover. So those are key elements that should be in your 2.0 literature review in chapter 2. Now in chapter 3, the title of chapter 3 is research methodology. I have seen in proposals where people are writing methodology, but I understand there was a spelling mistake in the PIU guideline for the project writing. So that is probably where you are getting it. But then chapter 3 must be research methodology. So chapter 3, research methodology. Write it. Chapter 3 in capital letters, research methodology also in capital letters, center them. And then you move to the left. 3.0 should be your introduction. The introduction is, again, I repeat, the overview of this chapter. Every chapter has its own unique introduction because it covers different sections of a proposal. So you must do that, not more than 8 sentences. It should be brief to the details that are required. So 3.1, so your 3.0 is introduction. Use your own words, no citing. 3.1 is your research design. Research design here, I have a problem. I have seen in a number of books, there is a mix-up. I have followed 3 major writers in research methodology, and I feel whatever they are giving is what we should embrace. Creswell covers only 3 research designs: qualitative research design, and then quantitative research design, and mixed method research design. Those are the only 3 that you need to consider. These people who are saying that the study adopted descriptive research design, I don't know the kind of textbook that you are reading. Those things, the way I have discovered is that when you look at qualitative research design, under it, you will have case study approach, you will have ethnography approach, you will have a narrative something approach, and you will have those are part of them. And then in the quantitative, you will have the descriptive approach. So don't use an approach. I just want an overall research design first, and then the approach that you are employing. For example, if you are dealing with a topic that you know very well, is you are writing on Russia, a topic within to do with Russia, and you are not going to Russia, which means you are doing qualitative research design, you are using secondary data, then if your topic is a case study of, automatically you are doing research design is qualitative research design that employs a case study approach. Let us get that one right. We don't have to repeat small mistakes. You know, when I read these projects, sometimes I feel so annoyed because people are repeating the same mistakes that we have ironed out in various forums that we have assembled to discuss this thing. So tell us the research design. Is it qualitative research design? If that is the research design, which approach? And then justify why you feel your qualitative research design is the most appropriate. Why do you feel? Justify that, and then move the narrative like that, explore the merits of that particular research design which you think are going to benefit your study, and therefore trying to justify that that is the best research design for this activity. And then that area also need to be cited, very well cited. Research design, you must cite. I must see you citing. Best practice, every paragraph, at least 2. In this section, at least 2. But mostly, let me hear your own voice trying to justify that. Your 3.2 is target population. Now, target population is the population that you think has the data that you are looking for that will make it easier for you to answer the research question. So, if you are doing secondary data, then your target population is secondary data sources. So which are these data sources? And I saw Sharon did this area so well because she thought that these secondary sources that I am writing about, they are of various aspects. There are reports, there are policy briefs, and their academic writings. So she adopted a stratified sampling technique where she will sample policy papers, sample the academic writings like that. But the target population, if you are doing mixed method, then it is the people that you are going to talk to in that area of research. I have seen Emmanuel is doing mixed method in Makueni. So your target population are all the people that you want to interact with in as far as this research is concerned, those who live in Makueni. So capture that and give us the justification why the target population is critical. Why do you think they have all the answers that you are looking for as far as your research questions are concerned? Then because the target population is usually very large and we cannot do everybody there, that is why we have sampling. So your 3.3 should be sampling design. So what sampling techniques are you using in trying to create a representative population? Sampling technique, I must see. Are you using stratified? What is the justification? In this section, chapter 3 especially, for every move that you make, you must justify why that move is important. You must demonstrate reasons why we must move that direction. It cannot be a case of just saying and then rolling without telling us why we should follow you in that. You must justify, and that means you must also cite in this area. So you determine the sampling design, and then once you have done your sampling sample design, we need to understand the sample. If you are going to Makueni and you are going to do a mixed method, you are going to issue questionnaires. How many? If you are saying 50, why 50? Why not 48? Why 50? Justify 50. If you are doing 5 interviews, why 5 interviews? Why not 15? Why not 10? You must justify. It must make common sense why you are doing some of the things that you are doing. The choices that you are making, you must justify them. And that's why you start from the 3.1 is research design. Here you are not only a researcher, but also an artist who is trying to model this section to a section that is going to make sense. It must be properly written to the extent that if you don't go out there to collect data, somebody else can pick this section, read through it, and go out there, collect data, and come back with the same data that you would have collected were you to go out there. And that's the essence of writing this section properly. That's why you need to justify why every method that you are choosing is suitable. You must cite, you must infuse your own voice, you must defend your choices of the techniques in this section. So you do that sample design, you talk about sampling technique and the representative sample that you are settling on and why it is important. Then after that, you talk about data collection methods. If you are doing research design that is mixed, you must tackle these things into two. You must do quantitative research. How are you going to approach that? What sampling technique? So within the sample size, I should see one for quantitative, another one for qualitative. Different techniques, because every technique must have its own design. Then data collection, the same. If you are doing secondary data, then it means your data collection methods mostly is document analysis, and you can see how other methods that you can use to collect secondary data. Secondary data is already collected. It is stored somewhere. So yours is just picking, but you are not picking blindly what approaches, what tools you are using. If you are collecting primary data, and here you need to tell us the tools in data collection methods. You need to tell us the tools that you are using. Maybe say quantitative data will be collected using questionnaires. Qualitative data will be collected using the interviews. You'll be doing interviews to collect that. And you need to justify why that is appropriate. Then data analysis is, if you are doing secondary, you are doing either thematic analysis or content analysis. It depends. If it is qualitative, you are dealing with data that is in form of a text. It is non-numerical. If it is in form of a text, then you are looking at a thematic, themes or content. So thematic analysis or content analysis. If you are using secondary data, that is qualitative. The same thing applies if you have a mixed method research design. For qualitative data, the one that you collect using interviews, that one you will analyze it using either thematic analysis or content analysis. And if you are doing quantitative data, then analysis, you can use Excel or you can use SPSS. I saw somewhere where a student is writing, they are using a software called Nivo. My question is, do you have the software? Do you know how to use it? Because everything that you do here, you say here, is everything that must be done in chapter 4. And chapter 3 is very important, because if chapter 3 is shaky, or if chapter 3 does not make sense, then chapter 4 and 5 must die a natural death, because it is built on a quick sinking sand. It cannot be allowed to stand if the chapter 3 is not making sense. And that's why you need to take your time in trying to understand why this chapter needs to be written the way it should be. Give it the seriousness. It is almost practical. The things that you are writing there are things that can be done, so that when I'm reading chapter 4, I am basing the outcome of chapter 4 as the outcome of chapter 4 is an offspring of chapter 3. If chapter 3 is not making sense, then chapter 4 I don't read. Neither will I read the conclusion, and neither will I bother with the recommendation, because they are based on wrong data. So do that, data analysis. Then your 3.6 is ethical considerations. Ethical considerations. Every research has ethics. Ethics, these are best standard practices that we adopt. If you are doing a mixed method and you are going to collect data from people, the first thing you must do is that the participants must be joining your study on voluntary terms. No forcing. They should not be acting under duress. They are coming there by their own volition. So which means nobody is forced. And then another ethical consideration is that if the exercise is voluntary, then they must be able to drop out at whatever level of the study if they so wish. They are not bound. It's not a case of saying once you start, you will not stop. It doesn't work like that. If it is voluntary, I am getting there in a voluntary manner, and if I don't want to continue, I can also quit at whatever level. You must make that one possible. Then the other ethical consideration, if you are doing primary data, you are collecting, you are doing interviews, and you are doing questionnaires, you must make sure that whatever you are told is kept confidential. It is between you and the participant. Don't come to tell us what the participants told you. So confidentiality is another research ethic research. And then you must also not cause harm to your participants, which means you must take care of them. If you are going there for research, then it must be research. Avoid personalizing relations while doing this research. Handle them as your participants. And voluntary participation is normally indicated by a letter of informed consent. All the participants, that is if you are collecting primary data, they must have a letter of informed consent. If you are doing interviews and you are recording their responses, you must have a letter of informed consent which allows them to participate. And then you must also have another letter that grants you the right to record their responses, audio tapping form, which they have accepted that you can take the verbatim recording. And if you are doing secondary, if you are doing secondary, you don't have ethical considerations to worry about, but that does not mean that you are not carrying some ethics in as far as that is concerned. The choice of the secondary data sources must not lean towards painting a negative picture. You must act neutrally. You must let the research take its course. You should not you should not be a towering figure in this research, which you want to manipulate the findings to paint another narrative. If you have been chosen by a politician to go out there and research whether his 2027 MCA bid is viable, then because he has given you money, you go out there, you meet in a study, people, 70% of the people that respond, they tell you you should do something else, and you fearing that you will lose your source of living, you manipulate, you massage the figures so that they appear like it is only 30% who are opposing. That is not what should happen. You must be true to the data. Let data speak and draw your conclusions from the data that you have given. So in secondary, you have to mitigate biasness, and the choice, you need to also be transparent in your reporting. You need also to consider the constraints in the findings. If there is classified or sensitive data that you have used, you must adhere to open access research ethics. There are certain secondary data that is classified, that is not to be shared. If you must use it, then you must follow the right procedure of getting that data. Otherwise, you will be sued for crime. So that is how you need to write your proposal. And then at the end of your chapter 3, you need to have your references. Your references must be in strict APA format. Must be in strict APA format with hanging indents. If you have no idea on how that is done, you look at my course outlines. See how I have done my references. Do your references the same way. And here I have a problem. People in the first 3 chapters, they are very scanty. They even don't have literature. Somebody like Kiecha has written everything from AI, no citation. But when you get to the references, you have a dozen of references, which means that you have not even paid attention to the ethical considerations of research. If you have not cited anything within the document, do not have it in the list of references, because I do look at the list of references. I look at these people and I search them in the document, and I do at times lift these references and search them manually in Google. And in certain studies, I have not found certain citations that they are saying. There is no record in Google Scholar. In ordinary Google, there is no record, which means those are fake references, which you need to counter check each and every reference. And I know where that is coming from. Those people who have references that I cannot be able to search online and find, basically those references are created by AI. AI sometimes is not accurate. You need to know that. So you need to factor in that in every research citation you have made, you should go and check whether that is exactly existing the way it is existing. Sometimes it gives you the website down there, the link. When I click the link is not available, which means those references are cooked. If the references are cooked, then you are work is fictitious. So don't let me conclude that. Do due diligence, check your references, arrange them in alphabetical order. So if you are doing mixed method, which means you will be collecting primary data, anybody collecting primary data must have an appendix. Anybody doing primary data must have an appendix. Appendix 1 or Appendix A is letter of informed consent. Have it there. Appendix B is if you are recording, have audio tapping form. Have it as your Appendix B. If you are not recording, have Appendix B as your research questions. If you are doing interviews, I need to see your interviews, how the questions, so have the interview schedule, Appendix B. Then Appendix C is your questionnaire. Have the questionnaire. So if you are doing primary data and you are doing mixed, you must have 3 appendices within your proposal. There must be 3. So far, all people that are doing mixed, I have not seen anybody attaching this. In the final project, you must attach that. It will not be complete until it is done. If you are doing secondary data and you said you did thematic analysis, I need to see an appendix where thematic analysis was done. Go and read how thematic analysis is done, and I must see that appendix there. If the appendix is not there, the project is not complete. If you are doing content analysis, the same thing. So have that. Those who are doing mixed method and you are going to a physical area of research, I need to have a map. If it is Emmanuel doing Makueni County, attach a map of Makueni County or a study area as an appendix. So that is what you need to do in order to write your research proposal correctly. So listen to what I have said, go through each section and correct that section in line with what I have said. I am giving you a lot of information and a lot of support in this process, and therefore I'll also not want to accept any work that is substandard. And if I have written in your project, you come see me next week, make sure you come next week and see me on my desk, because I'm not going to engage you online. I'm only going to engage online those people that I feel my instructions are assisting. Those ones that I feel that this is something we have tackled and the student still is not getting it, you must leave everything that you are doing and come to my desk. If you want to graduate, you must do that. If you don't do that, I can tell you for a fact that I cannot append my signature to a work that does not reflect the standards that I stand for. So, and it's not the first time I'm doing that. I will reject. If you are not teachable, maybe somebody else can be patient enough to teach you. But if you are willing to be assisted, I am there to assist you. Reach out to me, whatever section you want us to cover. Let us create time. Let's do this thing. We are moving to the dying moments of this exercise, and some people are still very far from it. Others have never shared even a single draft of a proposal. From where I sit, I already know those names, and when those proposals come to my desk, I'll know what to do at that particular time. This is a learning process. If you are stuck, that is why I am there. Reach out to me, text me, create an appointment, let us meet, and let us iron out these issues. So using the guidelines I have given you, sit somewhere. Go through your proposal. And now, by now, start converting your proposal into chapter 1, 2, 3 of the project. Write in past tense. Write in past tense, because proposal is future, project is already done. That is why we use the past tense. So correct all those. I decided to use this approach because I realized that when I posted in the group requesting an online meeting, most of you were not, nobody actually engaged me further on that, which means you are very busy with what you are doing. And because I want you to facilitate you as my responsibility as your supervisor, I have decided to go ahead and record what you need to do, so that now using my recording, you sit somewhere in silence and listen to the record, and for each section correct using my voice and my counsel and how I'm directing you. For every section correct according to what I have said, according to what I have said. That is what you need. So if you do this correctly, then you are able to go through the exercise the way it should. So I have covered the proposal for today, and then because I know you are still writing your chapter 4, I would wait to see what you've written before I release another audio on the same. But then there was a confusion somewhere. Somebody asked in chapter 2, empirical research, empirical literature review, you are writing using the research objectives. Are you doing the same in chapter 4? No. In chapter 2, empirical research, empirical literature review, you are using the research objectives, the 3 specific research objectives. You are using them. 2.21 research objective 1, 2.22 research objective 2, 2.23 research objective 3. Now in chapter 4, if you are doing secondary, then you are using your research questions. You should go out there, collect data in line with each objective. Each objective must be researched differently. So I must see, these people who are doing secondary data, there are things that you are putting in a blanket. You need to lift the veil for each for each research question. How many secondary data sources materials did you use? I need to even see that kind of a table, so that when you come to thematic analysis down there as appendix 1, appendix 1 should be your research question 1, appendix 2 research question 2, and appendix 3 research question 3. All those things I need to see them. Please, you have everything that you need to write this project. I don't want to be an obstacle to your graduation goals, and that's why I'm going out of my way to facilitate you in writing properly. That is why I have availed myself to you, and next week I'll be in school. I'll be in school on Monday and up to Friday. I'm going to try hard to be there for those who are coming to consult, so that we can use this week, next week, because the semester has not picked pace. We can actually use that week and do a lot as far as this project writing is concerned. All those who have challenges, the best way you can do this thing is assume you have resumed your September studies and come to school. If you come to school 1 week and we have deliberations, almost you are writing from the library, if you feel stuck, you are on my desk consulting, I can tell you within 1 week you will do 80% of this project. I don't want to allocate anybody a D. I don't want to give a C. I want to give a B or an A. But you must sweat for you to get that. I don't like giving this thing the lower mark, and that's why I must push you to do the good work, so that I can give you a good grade. Remember, if you score an A, those will be 2 A's, because there is an A for the proposal and there is a B for the an A for another proposal. And from the experience that I have seen, in most cases, it is these projects that normally tilt the scales. Sometimes people are in 69. The project tilts to first class. Sometimes somebody is in second class lower, the project will tilt the second class lower to upper. Sometimes the project will tilt, and here I don't restrict, I can give even 90, even 95. If the work is so amazing, I can give it. So do your best. it is your grade. Write with speed and consult where you are stuck. So with those many remarks and those insights, I know that you are now better placed to write a very good proposal. So put it into practice and let me see what comes out of it. Wish you all the best and thank you very much.